It is Debbie DeGroat. Welcome to our webinar today. Today we have a short one, but I think an interesting one. It's a topic that we haven't tackled before, but I think it's perfectly awesome to talk about it today. So we're going to talk about how to choose your circle wisely. Today we're going to talk about the friends, the influencers, the people in your world that help you be all that you can be and how to find them. So go ahead, if you would, and just type in the chat box just a quick hello. So glad to have you here with us. So please type in the chat box your name, where you're from, and I'm going to hit it hard and hit it fast today, and then let you guys all get back out there and get to work. Because can you believe it? We are powering through September. And I often think that when we hit October 1st, that's really the start of the new year, right? Because a lot of the activities that we do in the last 90 days of the year will launch your success in January. That's why I thought, let's get a little bit ahead of our business planning and our goal setting, and let's talk about those influencers that might be in your world. So thank you guys for typing in the chat box, and absolutely, we will send you a copy of this recording. You'll get it tomorrow afternoon. Usually takes us just a minute to turn it around. So just a quick hello, Debbie DeGroat, CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching. And you know, when I started in the real estate business at the age of 18, obviously just a kid, and I remember my broker told me that while it's very important that you maintain your great friends and your relationships, he said, if you want to grow and you want to grow rapidly in your business and in your life and your professionalism, you're going to need to seek others who you aspire to be or who you respect. And in fact, he gave me an assignment, which is really a cool assignment. Really scared the heck out of me at the time, though. He told me that every month I had to figure out one influential person in our community or in my world that I could interview. And he said, I don't care who they are. They could own some different type of business, or they could be someone who just inspires you because they do such a great job leading a charity or some community give back opportunity. They just excel at something that you admire. And he said, I actually prefer that they're not all from the real estate industry. You know, get some different viewpoints. I'm sure, I don't even remember, but probably my interviews were kind of pathetic. My questions probably weren't the best. But what was interesting is the different viewpoints that I got by meeting with these really amazing people. So I went on to have a very successful sales career right here in LA and Orange County. And then for the last 25 years, I've had the pleasure of having some incredible influencers in my world, because here at Forward Coaching, we have the pleasure of coaching some of the brightest and best in North America. But here's the thing. You know that quote by Steve Jobs? I probably won't get it just right, but here's to the crazy ones, the rebels, the misfits, the square peg that won't fit in the round hole. That's us, right? The entrepreneurs. So as we talk about finding people that you spend time with that influence your success in a negative or positive way, I think we have to be realistic about the fact that there's a fair amount of people in your world that you love, that you care about, but they don't get you, right? They don't get you. And I'm not saying anything derogatory towards their choice, that they have a 9-to-5 job, you know, quote, security, but they look at you as this crazy entrepreneur, this misfit, this rebel, and they don't understand you. I heard that if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, that they could all easily climb right out of that bucket, except they never get out. And you know why? Because as soon as one crab starts to leave the bucket, the other crabs pull them back. Now, I thought maybe this was just made up, but I actually Googled it and I found YouTube videos that actually demonstrate the crabs pulling the other crabs back. So, who are the crabs near you in your bucket? That doesn't mean they're bad people. I'll give you an example. My father-in-law, he passed away in his late 80s a few years ago. Wonderful man, amazing man, great father, great father-in-law, great grandfather, just a great man. But you know what? He grew up in the Depression. He then had a farm that struggled and he had to sell the farm and move to California and become a truck driver and start over again at a later age in life. So he had a little bit of a half empty glass mindset when it came to business and opportunity. Now, he's a great guy in every other way, but he just didn't have that belief, that entrepreneurial spirit. And I remember when I first met him, he asked me, what did I do for a living? And I said, I sell real estate. And he said, well, you'll wash out. Pretty much everyone does. But I guess I was young enough, it didn't really bother me because I just believed anything was possible. Went on to have a great career, went on to marry his son, went on to have a great relationship with him. But you know what? I didn't share my business goals with him. See, you can have people in your life that you love and they don't get you, but you can love them. You just don't share your business goals with them because if you did, they might have negative thoughts or influences that would pull you back, that would pull you back into that bucket. Now, as you meet new people in your world, you get to choose. Are you going to choose people that are negative or that are a positive influence on your success in some way? And I was listening to some podcast or something, and they used this example. They said, how would you feel if your doorbell rang and you opened your door and your neighbor threw into your entryway a disgusting pail of garbage? You'd be mad, right? You'd be super mad. Like, what the heck are you thinking? So, on this podcast, the question was, how are you allowing people in your life to dump their garbage into your mind? A lot of being a great salesperson, it's kind of a little bit like being an amazing athlete or performer. It's a mental game. Am I right? Like, you guys know what I mean, where you wake up in the morning and you're just ready to go, ready to knock it out of the park. You are on fire and everything you touch goes well. And then there's those days where not so much, right? You feel in a slump, you feel down. It is such a mental game that as sales professionals, it's part of our job to take care of our mindset. So be careful. It might be someone in your office that always has a complaint, always has a negative story to share. It could be anyone you meet in your world, and you either choose not to be part of those conversations or to redirect the conversation. Gosh, I'm sorry you had a bad weekend with that buyer. I don't really want to hear the negative side of that story. However, if there's something I can do to help you solve the problem with the buyer, I'm happy to talk about it. So I know the world is complicated, and I'm not talking about being Pollyanna and living in a perfect bubble. I'm just talking about protecting that valuable asset that is your mind, that is your attitude, that is your enthusiasm. It is your priceless asset. So not only do we need to protect it from negativity, but we have to work to make it stronger. You know, there's a lot of science around the fact that when we say negative things about ourselves to ourselves, it has a tremendous impact. So, for example, let's say I'm hanging out with you this afternoon and I go, wow, what did you do to your hair? It looks terrible. Well, you might get mad, a little bit upset. You might even feel like a little insecure. Gosh, I thought it looked good. But you know what your mind will do? It will instantly charge in to protect you. Well, what does she know? Her hair doesn't look so great. Mine looks perfectly fine. But guess what? If you say negative things to yourself, there is no filter. So if you say to yourself, I'm a terrible real estate agent, I just don't know what I'm doing. I can't believe I screwed that up. I'm never going to achieve my goal. Guess what? Your mind believes you. So not only do you need to protect yourself from negative influences around you, you need to protect yourself from yourself, right? Was it Earl Nightingale that said, we get what we think about most? So what are you thinking about each and every day? And if they're not great thoughts about the business, what would be your steps to reprogram that? You know, it's hard to stay negative when you're learning new things. I don't know about how you all feel, but I always found that kind of my worst, scariest time would be during the day driving around in the car, thinking about all the problems of the deals or my worry about where the next deal was going to come from. And someone actually said once, you know, my mind is a scary place, don't go there alone. So kind of like that, right? But I found that if I would listen to a great audiobook, or I would listen to my scripts that I had recorded in my own voice, because it's kind of been proven you learn better when you do that. That if I was programming my mind with positive information, things that would spark ideas and inspire me, it sort of protected me, like created a barrier against some of my own negative thoughts. So this is probably, in a sense, one of the most foundational pieces of succeeding is protecting your mindset. Think about a professional athlete. Think about any high-level performer, Olympian. They got to work on their mind before they work on their body. Now, I don't want to beat this subject up because it could be like so controversial, and it's not my intention to go there. But I would say question yourself on what are you watching, what are you listening to, and what are you viewing on social media? Because we all have choices every day of what we invite into our world. My husband happens to like the news. So we have to have some rules around my house about how much news, and I don't want to listen to it, you know? So we all have our path. And I'm not here to judge your path or what you choose. I'm just saying, is what you're plugging into uplifting you, or is it making you feel worse? Because our business is hard enough. So if you need to, replace it with some positive podcasts, some webinars, some great books that inspire you. Again, it's hard to be negative when you're learning new things. My business partner, Ben, has a favorite podcast called How I Built It. So if you guys want to Google that, find it, How I Built It. So they interview terrific people who describe their story on how they built what they built and became successful. One of those people is Sarah Blakely. She is the lady who created Spanx and is now a billionaire, probably a couple times over. Ben loved this podcast so much that we then created an event called Built How, which is a little bit of a play on the How I Built It. Some of you even attended those very large events. And we actually brought Sarah in as one of our guest speakers. If you don't listen to any more than just one How I Built It podcast, find hers. Because I think it's a story you'll identify with. It is a rags to riches. It is about being determined, setting a goal, and doing some pretty crazy and out of the box things to make sure that she succeeded. And she's still a crazy and fun person. I got to hang out with her backstage. I think you would really enjoy that. You know what others sometimes like to do also is find people they really admire. Like it might be an athlete, anyone that you just have, you love hearing about it. You love watching them and seeing what their success path has been. What I like about reading biographies of successful people, it reminds us that their path was not easy either. You know how sometimes it's easy to look at something like I remember reading, it's been so long ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I just remember reading a book about Walt Disney, because you all know who Walt Disney is, right? And you would think, well, Disneyland, of course, he was successful, he was rich. But in describing his path, his vision for Disney World, he literally would put every penny of his personal wealth, income, security, every penny on the line multiple times as he expanded and grew Disneyland. He faced a lot of rejection. Then you think of the old story of Wrigley chewing gum. We're here near Catalina Island in California, which was owned by the Wrigleys, who were the owners of Wrigley chewing gum. And there's a mansion there where Mr. Wrigley, he built it for himself. And in that mansion, there's a library. And that it used to be, I'm not sure they still allow it, but you could go there and get a room and spend the night. So my husband and I went there for anniversary, spent the night. I spent most of the night down in the library because they had handwritten letters from Mr. Wrigley that they had photocopied, of course, in binders. And he was talking about the projects he was working on. And you could tell he was nervous. He was worried because in the margin, he would have things like think positive, seize the day, be with positive people. Like he believed in this power of controlling his mind. So find those cool things like the How I Built It podcast, the biographies of people that inspire you, that you admire. And just remember, it does not all have to be about business. And then when you choose people to share your goals with, find those who understand an achiever's mindset. Now, it's okay if you share your goals and your plan and they're being a very constructive devil's advocate, about, well, what about this? And should you try this? And is that a realistic number? See, that's not negative. That's constructive and strategic. Negative would be someone who looks at you and says, oh, wow, I don't think, oh, do you not know what the market is doing? Do you really think you can do that? Of course you can, right? So my very first broker, when I went to work at the age of 18, gave me the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he said, I want you to read it. And he said, each year, I want you to read it again. Because he said, as you grow and mature in your business, in your mind, in your mindset, it will mean different things to you. But he made me memorize this quote: whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Right? So back to our original quote: the misfits, the rebels, the crazy ones, the square peg that will not fit in the round hole. There's a lot of tough things about being in this industry. It's actually one of the tougher industries, I think, on the planet. You got to get up every day and start over and make it happen. But the good news is no one can limit what's possible for you. So find people who are achievers. Get out of your comfort zone by seeking new people and situations that expose you to new ideas and challenges. I actually have a couple of friends who have private jets. I don't have a private jet. One of them's building a $6 million vacation home that probably he'll go to 6 weeks a year. I don't really understand that, right? And yet, they're all incredibly successful business people that started out as entrepreneurs. When I hang out with them, I feel a little bit poor, right? I feel a little bit like, hey, game on. I got to do something exciting because they're always off on some entrepreneurial adventure. Sure, they enjoy the fruits of their labor, but with them, it's much more about the exciting challenges that are ahead. So when I hang out with them, I don't always feel comfortable, and that's okay. That's good for me. And you know the saying, you always want to try to be the dumbest person in the room, which isn't comfortable, but it's good for us. So find an inspiring person each month to interview. Maybe it's someone in your industry or a successful entrepreneur in your area or someone who has just overcome some kind of significant challenge, or connect with a thought leader in your field. There are no rules other than you find someone that inspires you and then manage that self talk. It is absolutely impossible to control the first thought that enters in your brain. Maybe a seller fires you and you're upset and you think, oh, I'm a loser. I totally screwed that up. You know what? It happens. It comes right into your head. You cannot stop it, but you know what you can do? You can control the second thought. So when that thought comes in your brain, I actually want you to say it out loud, stop it, and then replace it with a positive thought. So negative thought happens, stop it, replace it with a positive thought. Because emotion is a scary thing. It can really derail your life and your business. Don't beat yourself up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that you wish you hadn't. You're going to miss opportunities that you feel you shouldn't have missed. But that's just human, right? So instead, if we could view the mishaps and mistakes as opportunities to grow. I mean, I can clearly remember two or three, because they were so memorable, big mistakes that I made in my sales career. And they were devastating. I was so sorry that it happened. And I just told myself that I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again, but the lessons I've learned help me grow at an even higher level and help me serve my customers at an even higher level. So don't beat yourself up. It's not productive. Ask yourself, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What am I going to learn from that that's going to allow me to be better, stronger in the future? So, what did I do right? What should I learn from this? How am I going to change what I do to make this a positive experience and then move on? A good sort of little mental thing at the end of your day is do an inventory of the good things that you've accomplished. I did not make this up. Somebody taught me this. I wish I could remember so I could give them the credit. But what they said to me is, as you're driving home each day, they said, I want you to go through the day and I want you to think of all the good things that happened, all of them. Well, I woke up healthy. It was perfect weather and I had a great walk by the beach. It was amazing. And I got to the office and everybody showed up and they were working. And then I made my calls and I found a great prospect. Well, my one deal did fall out, but I think I'm going to get it back together with a new buyer, a little extra work. Not super happy about it, but it happened. Hey, my family is healthy. Like, just go through that mental inventory. Typically, you're going to find that probably 80% of your day was pretty good. And the 20% that was not good, either we'll fix it or we can't fix it, and we just need to accept it and move on. And if you're really struggling with this, another thought might be at the end of the evening, when you climb into bed, I know quite a few people in my world, they have a little scratch pad next to their bed. And what they do right before they go to sleep is they write down what they felt were their wins and their victories of the day. It could simply be, I was not feeling like going to work, but I got up and I got up on time and I did it. Hey, that's a win. Or, there was that one really angry seller, but I didn't engage in the battle. I took the high ground. I was the calm, cool head. I resolved the situation. That's a win, right? So record those wins because I guess apparently psychologically, there's a weird thing that when we put that great stuff in our head right before bed, we wake up in the morning in a better mindset. Kind of makes sense, I guess, right? Last thing you go to bed thinking about. So take an inventory, record your wins before bed to wake up in the morning in a more positive mood. And take care of yourself. It's hard to be at the top of your mental game when you're exhausted. In this business, I bet we take less days off than most industries. Would you guys agree? Right? When is the last time you had an actual day off or an actual vacation where you weren't working? I was reading something about emotional intelligence and how it's hard to be highly emotional intelligent, which is instinctive, reading the room, versatility, controlling your own behavior. It's hard to do that when you're exhausted, right? So please take care of yourself. And if you need some help, one of the things that I always tell our coaches, we aren't psychiatrists here. We aren't life coaches or marriage counselors. However, we do work hard to understand all the unique pieces of your life. And I challenge you to do the same for yourself. Your personality, your emotional intelligence, and how you want to improve that. How you manage your world, those in it, and your mindset. Because again, this is a business that is 90% mental. So if you need some help, scan that QR code. And Winston, you're right. I love that saying, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Paige says, yeah, family a lot of times can be the root of negativity about your goals. And it's easy, Paige, to be angry with them for that. Instead, I think we just have to realize they just don't understand you, right? The entrepreneur, the misfit, the rebel. So just share those goals with someone who does understand. And that's why when my father-in-law later years would ask me, how's business? I would always say, Thank you for asking. It's going great. And I just left it at that. That was it. It was simple. I didn't have to be upset. He didn't have to worry about me, and we could have a great relationship. So remember, crabs in the bucket. Avoid the crabs. They're dangerous. All right, guys. Hey, have a great rest of your day. Find somebody interesting to hang out with and talk to, and that we're going to have this recording coming your way tomorrow. All right, guys. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.